My name is Irene Sewell. I'm 28 years old, and on the night everything came crashing down, I was sitting alone in the cold blue glow of 3 monitors debugging code at 2:03 a.m. The apartment was silent except for the soft hum of my server tower and the faint rattle of the air conditioner fighting for its life. Empty ramen cups were stacked like tiny monuments to desperation beside my keyboard. I'd been living like this for months, no years, ever since I founded my startup. But that night exhaustion wasn't the reason my hands trembled over the keyboard. It was him. He was standing behind me. My boyfriend of 3 years, Daniel Harper, 26. The man I thought I'd build a future with. Irene, he said, voice sharp in the dark. We need to talk about your situation. I blinked up at him from behind my monitor. My situation. He gestured vaguely at my home office setup, my whiteboard filled with architecture diagrams, my Slack notifications, the half-written pitch deck on my top screen. This whole startup fantasy, he said. It's been 2 years. When are you going to get a real job? A familiar sting twisted in my chest. This is my job, Daniel. We're about to close a massive funding round. He rolled his eyes. God, that eye roll had become his favorite language lately. You've been saying that for months. Meanwhile, I'm stuck telling my friends you're between opportunities because it's embarrassing to admit my girlfriend spends all day at home eating ramen and pretending to be a CEO. That one landed deep. Not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. Daniel, I whispered, I'm building an automated inventory management platform. We already have 12 enterprise clients. He scoffed like I had told him I was training to be a unicorn tamer. Whatever you say. My sister's boyfriend just made partner. Kelly's fiancé is a banker, and I'm dating a woman who wears the same hoodie for 3 days and calls instant noodles a business lunch. His voice didn't carry concern, it carried disgust. Something in me, something quiet, something tired, clicked into place. He crossed his arms. I need stability, Irene. A partner who can match my lifestyle, not someone living off savings playing entrepreneur. I pay for this apartment, I reminded him softly. He ignored it. With your dwindling savings, what happens when you run out? I can't keep subsidizing your dreams with my salary. I almost laughed. He had never paid for rent, utilities, internet, anything. His version of subsidizing meant buying his own gym clothes and occasionally grabbing takeout on the way home. But I stayed calm, the calm you feel right before a storm breaks. I swallowed. What exactly do you want from me? Simple. He said it like he was offering me a glass of water. Shut this startup nonsense down and get a real software job. With your skills, you could make 200 grand at a big tech company. Then we can start planning a real future. Marriage, a house, normal things. And if I don't, I asked. He didn't hesitate. Then I can't do this anymore. I'm 26, Irene. I'm not wasting my prime years on someone who refuses to grow up. We stared at each other. 1 minute, 2. The code on my monitor kept blinking quietly, waiting for me to finish executing it. The world didn't stop for heartbreak. Then I breathed out and said the words that changed everything. You're right. Daniel blinked. What? You're absolutely right, I said. This isn't working. His face lit up. He actually hugged me. Oh, thank God, he said. I knew you'd see reason. When will you start applying? I'll handle it, I said. Just give me a couple weeks to wrap things up. He practically skipped to bed, humming under his breath. I sat back down, slowly staring at the monitors, feeling the weight of what I had just agreed to. He couldn't know that for the past 6 weeks, while he called my work embarrassing, I'd been in due diligence for an acquisition. A major tech company was negotiating to buy my platform, integrate it into their logistics suite, and pay us more money than I had ever seen in my life. The timing of his ultimatum was beautiful in a twisted cinematic way. I opened Slack, typed into our private founder channel, emergency meeting tomorrow, 9:00 a.m. Big news. Then I looked towards the bedroom door, where Daniel's shadow moved under the crack of light. He thought he'd broken me. He thought he'd won. But dawn was coming. And when it did, everything would change. For the next 10 days, my life split into 2 realities. By morning, I played the part Daniel expected, the obedient girlfriend wearing clean blouses, tying my hair back, and pretending to head out for job interviews at neat corporate offices. I'd sling my laptop bag over my shoulder, kiss his cheek, and walk out the door like someone who was finally getting her life together the way he liked to phrase it. But by night, the mask came off. I became who I had always been, someone Daniel never truly understood. I worked until my fingers cramped, finalizing acquisition terms with lawyers, negotiating employee retention packages, debugging last-minute issues, and preparing documents worth more than anything Daniel had ever contributed to our life. He never suspected a thing. Every evening when I returned home, he'd greet me with this satisfied paternal smile, as if he had personally rebuilt my ambition. So he'd ask cheerfully, "How did the interviews go?" I always gave him the same answer: promising. And the truth was, everything was promising, just not for the reasons he believed. With each passing day, Daniel grew bolder, more confident that he had fixed me. He threw himself into planning our future with a kind of feverish enthusiasm he had never once shown toward my actual work. He spent hours scrolling through luxury homes, comparing countertops, reading mortgage blogs marking school districts, pinning wedding venues, and floral arrangements to Pinterest boards titled "Future Home with Irene and Dream Wedding." I would sit beside him quietly nodding, watching him construct a future using blueprints he never earned, while my real future, the one I had built with blood and sleep deprivation, was unfolding in secret on my laptop. One night, he tapped my knee excitedly, pointing at a 4-bedroom colonial with a 3-car garage. "Once you get your new job, we should look seriously at places like this," he said. "You're finally stepping in the right direction. Isn't that what you want?" He didn't notice the contract glowing on my screen, the one listing the acquisition price. $2.3 million. Money he assumed I would never see without his guidance or his approval. 10 days after his ultimatum, I boarded a morning flight he thought was for a final interview. I wore business attire to keep the illusion alive. But instead of meeting recruiters, I walked into a glass-walled conference room where the acquisition team waited. When I signed the final document, my hand shook, not from fear, but from the realization that my life had just split from Daniel's permanently. My 40% stake, $920,000. Jordan, my co-founder, lifted his glass in a cramped hotel bar later that afternoon. To the deal, he said, grinning. And to boyfriends who accidentally speed up negotiations. I laughed because if I didn't, I might scream. When I returned home that evening, Daniel had redecorated the living room. There were new candles arranged on the table, fresh pillows on the couch, and a vision board taped to the wall, covered in magazine cutouts of suburban homes. He turned toward me with an eager smile. "How'd it go? Did you get it?" I shrugged casually, still waiting to hear back. He accepted that answer with an almost proud nod, as if he deserved credit for my imaginary progress. "I knew you just needed a push," he said. "If you want, I can call my friend's husband at Microsoft. He can put in a word for you." I forced a polite smile. "I'm good, really." He didn't sense the shift. He never did. 3 days later, he dragged me to his friend's engagement party, one of those events where everyone tries desperately to outbrag the next couple. 10 minutes in, I wanted to leave. But Daniel was on a roll. To anyone who would listen, he boasted, "She's finally interviewing with real companies. She's turning things around." I felt heat creep up my neck. He wasn't just taking credit, he was rewriting my entire story. When his friend's fiancé asked brightly, "That's amazing." What company? Daniel cut me off before I opened my mouth. "She's exploring several opportunities. Multiple Fortune 500s are interested." The entitlement in that single sentence made something inside me snap. Still, I stayed silent, watching him sell a narrative he had carefully crafted, one in which he was the mentor and I was the lost cause he had heroically guided to success. Reality had never been further from his mouth. On Monday morning, while I was sipping coffee, my phone rang. A cheerful voice introduced herself from Channel 9 News. "We'd love to interview you about the acquisition," she said. I felt Daniel freeze from across the kitchen. I kept my tone even. "I'll need to check with my PR team. I'll call you back." When I hung up, he stared at me like he'd just seen a ghost. "What was that wrong number?" I replied. He grabbed his laptop. I didn't try to stop him. I went to shower. 20 minutes later, steam still clinging to my hair, I stepped out to find him sitting perfectly still on the couch, face drained of color. My company's acquisition announcement glowing on his screen. His hands were shaking. "What?" His voice cracked. "What the hell is this, Irene?" "Oh, that," I said lightly. "Yeah, the acquisition went through last week." His expression twisted. "Last week, you sold your company for $2.3 million and didn't tell me. You said my work was embarrassing," I reminded him quietly. "I didn't think you'd care." The look he gave me, then, shock-hurt entitlement, told me everything I needed to know about who he truly was. The next 3 days were a predictable parade of emotional manipulation. At first, he smothered me in affection. Sudden compliments, flowers, cooking dinner for the first time in months, notes that read, "I believe in you." He played the supportive boyfriend with nauseating enthusiasm, pretending the ultimatum had been tough love. Then came the spreadsheets, pages and pages, outlining how we should spend our new money. A down payment on a house, a $100,000 wedding, a new car for him. investment funds for his father's struggling business. We're a team, baby, he told me. What's yours is ours. I stared him down. Interesting, I said softly, because 2 weeks ago you were ready to leave me. His smile flickered. That was before I knew you were about to close the deal. And there it was, the truth he couldn't hide, the truth I couldn't ignore. He didn't love me. He loved proximity to success. And he thought I owed him something. He was very, very wrong. The moment Daniel realized I wasn't going to hand him a cent, not a house deposit, not a car, not even a celebratory dinner, something in him shifted. His compliments dried up. His proud boyfriend routine evaporated. What replaced it was something colder, more calculating. He started making little comments meant to corner me. You know, he said one morning while sipping the latte, I paid for most couples make big financial decisions together, especially when one partner finally levels up. Finally, levels up. As if I hadn't been fighting for my company long before he ever believed it could succeed. That evening, I came home to his mother's voice on speakerphone, echoing through the kitchen. Well, Irene should think about buying property now, and you two should start planning. Daniel says the acquisition money is enough to set you both up. He looked at me with a smug smile. Mom thinks we should consider a 4-bedroom. You know, future kids and all. I muted the call. Daniel, I haven't agreed to anything. You will, he said like it was a fact of nature. I stared at him. Something was wrong, more wrong than even I had realized. And then it escalated. I discovered it by accident while checking my credit report for an unrelated reason. A new inquiry popped up. A dealer in the suburbs. A luxury auto lender. A car loan application. In my name. A $75,000 Tesla. My heart hammered. I called the dealership. Yes, the representative said calmly. We flagged the application as suspicious. It came from an IP address that didn't match your usual pattern. A man called about it yesterday. A man. Daniel. I hung up and sat very still, the phone cold in my hand. This wasn't entitlement anymore. This was fraud. That was the moment I knew I wasn't safe with him. I wasn't respected. I wasn't loved. I was a wallet he thought he had earned access to. And he was willing to forge my signature to get it. My breath steadied. A calm, icy clarity took over. Daniel wasn't just a bad partner. He was a threat. So I began planning. Not a breakup, a disappearance. One that would leave nothing for him to cling to. No access, no leverage, no chance to twist the story or negotiate his way back in. I found a new apartment across the city, signed the lease, booked movers, moved my essential tech items into a locked office at our co-working space, changed passwords, set 2-factor authentication on everything, ordered new bank cards, and then I began the final step, creating the distraction. A fake job posting. Senior marketing manager. Salary, $150, $1,000, $180, $1,000. Every qualification matched Daniel's resume exactly. I used phrases straight from his LinkedIn profile, strategically written, perfectly baited. Then I emailed it to him from a burner account. Hi Daniel, we came across your impressive background and believe you'd be an excellent fit. Let us know if you're interested. He replied within 3 minutes. The next 3 days were an Oscar-worthy performance on his part. He bought a new shirt, practiced interview answers in the mirror, built a pitch deck, rehearsed with his friends, asked me to review his slide transitions. I smiled, softly nodding. You'll nail it, I told him. He kissed me full of confidence he did not earn. Once I get this job, we'll be a power couple. Combined income over $700K. He had absolutely no idea what was coming. Thursday afternoon, his fake interview was scheduled downtown at 2 p.m. He left the apartment around noon, giving himself plenty of time to prepare mentally. The second the door clicked shut, I moved. The movers arrived right on time. 2 hours. That's all it took. Everything I owned, my tech, my clothes, my keepsakes, was packed and gone. Their efficiency felt like justice being executed by professionals. I left his belongings untouched. The apartment looked exactly the same, except for the absence of me. On the kitchen counter, I placed 2 sheets of paper. On top, the printed acquisition announcement. A yellow sticky note. Congratulations on your new job. Mine worked out pretty well too. Underneath, the attempted car loan application. Another note. P.S. Forging signatures is a felony. Consider this your only warning. I walked out, locked the door behind me, slipped the key under the mat, blocked his number on the elevator ride down. That evening, while unpacking in my new apartment, I sipped tea and waited. At 4:47 p.m., the meltdown began exactly on schedule. Doorbell ringing at the old apartment, frantic, repeated, desperate. Calls to the building manager. texts to mutual friends. Voicemails full of confusion, anger, bargaining panic. By 6:00 p.m., his best friend Mira called me one of the few numbers I hadn't blocked. "Irene, what did you do?" she demanded. "Daniel is having a breakdown." I leaned back against the counter. I moved out. "What do you mean you moved out?" "He went to an interview and came home to an empty apartment. He wanted me to level up," I said calmly. "So I did." "That interview wasn't real, was it? The company website is fake." "Weird," I said. "I hope he finds something real. The job market is tough." "This is cruel," Mira snapped. "He loves you." "He loves my money," I corrected. Slight difference. "He said you owe him." I cut her off. "I owe him nothing." There was silence on the line. I could almost hear gears turning as she pieced everything together. "Wait," she whispered. "He tried to buy a Tesla in your name." "Check his browser history," I said. "It's all there." More silence. And then quietly, "I didn't know." "Most people don't," I replied. That night, as I unpacked boxes in my new apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Space, air, a future that actually belonged to me. Daniel wanted control. He wanted ownership. He wanted to claim my success like a trophy he earned. But consequences don't wait for permission. They just arrive, and his were only beginning. The next morning, my phone exploded calls, notifications, messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Daniel had entered the panic stage, the denial stage, and the rage stage all within 12 hours, and he was dragging everyone in his orbit into the spiral. He started by calling neighbors at the old apartment building, demanding to know where I had gone. Then he called the leasing office, insisting they must have me on record somewhere. They didn't. I had planned too carefully for that. After that, he contacted every mutual friend we had. His version of the story, Irene abandoned him out of nowhere. Irene betrayed him. Irene owed him compensation. He conveniently left out the part where he'd tried to steal a $75,000 car using my name. By the afternoon, he had moved on to social media, posting a dramatic, pitiful sob story about being used, then discarded after giving her years of support. The comments were mixed. Some sympathized. Others didn't. One person wrote, "Didn't you say 2 months ago that you were embarrassed by her startup?" Another added, "You always talk trash about her work. Now you want credit." Daniel deleted the post within an hour. His panic didn't stop. By evening, he escalated to family. His mother called me from a blocked number. I didn't pick up, but the voicemail played automatically. "Irene, this is absolutely unacceptable. Daniel says you blindsided him. A good woman doesn't walk out on a man who supported her. You need to come back and discuss the financial arrangements. It's only fair." "Financial arrangements?" I nearly laughed. Then came his father, loud enough to practically break my phone speaker. "You humiliated my son. You owe him half the acquisition money. You never would have gotten it without him pushing you." I hung up mid-sentence. I sat on my new couch, surrounded by half-opened boxes, and wondered how many times in my life I had quietly absorbed comments like that. How long I had let people rewrite my victories as someone else's influence. It ended here. 2 days later, the situation took a sharp turn, one that even I couldn't have predicted. Channel 9 News aired the Startup Success segment anyway. They didn't need my interview. They had enough material from Jordan, early clients, and archived footage. The story opened with shots of our old co-working space interviews with engineers who talked about my leadership and clips of the product demo. The reporter narrated, "Founder Irene Sewell built her company from nothing, sleeping at the office, living on ramen coding for 18-hour stretches." They showed photos from our early launch events, videos from hackathons, snapshots of me presenting at a startup expo. My name flashed on screen, my face, my work, my struggle. Then came the line that detonated Daniel's life. Friends say Irene faced doubts even from loved ones. One co-founder mentioned she once received an ultimatum to quit her startup just weeks before it sold for $2.3 million. The camera cut to Jordan, who shrugged with a smirk. Yeah, her boyfriend told her to shut it all down. Good thing she didn't listen. The internet reacted instantly. A clip of Jordan saying that line circulated on tech Twitter, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. Memes appeared overnight. Don't be this boyfriend. Ultimatum. Guy strikes again. Imagine missing out on a millionaire girlfriend because you wanted her to get a real job. The best one. A photo of a dumpster fire with, "When she sells her startup for millions and you're still mad, she ate ramen." Daniel's private social media accounts were suddenly very public. His coworkers saw it, his friends saw it, his sister saw it. His ex-girlfriend, who despised him, posted it to her story with the caption, "Couldn't have happened to a better man." Daniel tried to fight back. He hired some cheap lawyer who sent me a demand letter claiming unjust enrichment and implied partnership. My attorney read it, laughed once, then sent a one-page response. No common law marriage, no agreements, no financial contributions from your client. Also, we have documented evidence of attempted identity fraud. Proceed if you wish. We never heard from that lawyer again. Meanwhile, Daniel's professional life disintegrated. Every time he reached a final round interview, something went wrong. The hiring manager would go in a different direction. The position would freeze. Another candidate would be a better culture fit. He blamed me. He accused me of blacklisting him. He told people I was sabotaging him. The truth, I hadn't spoken a single word to anyone. But when companies Googled him, they found the news clip, the memes, the threads, the comments about the Tesla fraud. He wasn't being blacklisted, he was being known. 2 months later, he moved out of the apartment we once shared. The lease was in his name, and without my covering utilities, groceries, and half the lifestyle he pretended to afford his salary couldn't support it. He went back to living with his parents. Still unemployed. Still posting vague, inspirational quotes like, "Sometimes you give your all and still get betrayed." And real queens fix their kings. One commenter replied, "You're not a king. You're a cautionary tale." I almost felt bad. Almost. Instead, I focused on the future, my future, the one I earned. Jordan and I launched a new company. Within weeks, we secured seed funding. Clients signed up faster than we projected. Investors emailed constantly. And somewhere in that haze of rebuilding and reclaiming my life, I met someone. His name was Evan, an architect I met at a small tech mixer. He didn't know me from any news story. Didn't care about my acquisition. He talked to me like a person, not a resume. On our 4th date, I told him the Daniel story. He paused, blinked twice, and said, "He tried to buy a Tesla in your name. That's bold." "Stupid," I corrected. He laughed. "What color pearl white? White interior." He winced. "God, that's a nightmare to maintain. You dodged a bullet." 8 months later, Evan still hasn't once called my work embarrassing. He brings me coffee during late-night coding sessions and beta tests new features without being asked. He likes me for who I am, not what I can earn. Last week, I ran into Mira downtown. She looked hesitant, almost guilty. "Irene," she said softly, "Daniel's not doing well." "I hope he figures himself out," I replied. "Truly." "He thinks you ruined his career," she whispered. I smiled faintly. His reputation is his own creation. Mira nodded. After a moment, she added, "He said he wants closure, maybe an apology." "He got his closure," I told her. It was waiting on the kitchen counter with a sticky note. Mira didn't argue. As she walked away, I realized something. Consequences don't require my participation. They don't need my approval. They don't need my hand to guide them. They simply arrive. Daniel once told me I needed to grow up and get a real job. What I actually needed was to grow out of him. He thought my startup was embarrassing. Now he gets to explain to every new date why his ex's success story includes him as the villain.